Good evening and welcome to our Pullman City Council meeting for this Tuesday, June 22nd. And this is our second meeting that we're having actually in person. And we're still separated by about 6 feet apart, so we're still going by those regulations. But at the end of this month, we're supposed to have no restrictions. At least that's what we're told by the governor's office. With that, Dee, why don't you take roll?
Mayor Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Chapman.
Present.
Councilmember McCall. Here. Councilmember Parks.
Here.
Councilmember Records. Councilmember Sorensen.
Here.
Councilmember Weller. Councilmember Wright. Here.
Dan Records notified us that he could not be here tonight. Do I hear a motion to excuse?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Under announcements tonight, the Cougs announced today that there will be full 100% capacity at Martin Stadium for the fall for 7 home games. That means so much for the community, its businesses, and the city as well. Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine in Spokane received notice today that it is a fully accredited medical school. That was a 6-year project. And the college recently had the Pullman Regional Hospital residency program accredited as well. WSU School of Music announced a new outdoor summer music series, Fridays at the Clock, starting next Friday, July 2nd. And every Friday through July 30th, you can bring your blankets. Blankets doesn't sound too good right tonight with the temperatures that are starting to climb. But you can bring lawn chairs and picnics to enjoy family-friendly concerts outdoors. The concerts will be located between Bryan Hall and Holland Library on the WSU campus. And don't forget, we have Music on Main. That continues every Thursday from 6 to 8 at the Pine Street Mall. This Thursday, Dan Marr will be performing. A special thank you to all those who have donated to make the 4th of July fireworks show possible. And while we're excited to return the fireworks to Sunnyside Park, members of the public are encouraged that you can view it anywhere else. And yes, you can go to Sunnyside, but we're really discouraging a lot of attendance because there will not be any entertainment. There will not be a barbecue there. Next year, we'll be able to do that again. But in the meantime, we want to thank a lot of people who've donated, including the most recent was the RPM Express Car Wash on Bishop Boulevard at Brailsford Drive. And they helped out last Friday in donations. As you know, summertime is busy for our maintenance and operation team. Phase 2 of the arterial street resurfacing project began today. Street closures during Phase 2 include Crestview Street from Spring Street to Carroll Star Drive and Harvest Drive from Carroll Star to Bishop Boulevard. Local residents will be allowed access to the work area at all times, but may experience delays. As the new road closures for Phase 2 are implemented, the road closed during Phase 1, Spring Street from Main Street to Crestview, is now open to traffic. I had a chance to look at that the other day along with Paradise, and it really looks a major improvement there. Hotter weather is coming our way. Perfect opportunity to save and conserve water. The City of Pullman offers conservation rebates for water-conserving toilets, lawn removals. Visit pullmanwa.gov. Find out more ways to conserve water and what your lawn could look like with drought-resistant landscaping. Under presentations tonight, we have a report from the Palouse Climate Lobby. And I know one of the co-leaders, Judy Mirth, is here tonight. And from the Palouse Citizens Climate Lobby. And Judy, would you come to the podium? And the time is yours. And apparently I just introduced Judy, but there must be somebody else.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. This is Kynan Witters Hicks, and he's going to start our presentation off.
Good evening, Mayor Johnson and council members. Thank you all so much for having us this evening and allowing us to speak with you. We are encouraged and appreciative of all the actions the city has taken over the last few years to become more energy efficient, to utilize sustainable sources of energy, and to save money at the same time. Some of the actions we have taken note of are converting city buses to hybrid and electric, installing solar panels on the new Parks, Recreation, and Senior Center building, saving over $10,000 a year, retrofitting Pullman streetlights with light-emitting diode or LED bulbs, reportedly saving hundreds of thousands of dollars, adopting a 2018 goal of developing a climate action plan, and setting goals to reduce daily water demand and water leakage outlined in your recent water use efficiency report, which ultimately lowers energy usage and emissions and preserves water supplies that are threatened even more by rising temperatures due to climate change. These are incredible steps in the right direction and make us proud to be a part of this community. Citizens Climate Lobby of the Palouse has been working with you for a few years at this point on various initiatives to mitigate climate change. And tonight we'd like to tell you about a climate change survey that we're putting together to engage Pullman residents, as well as reintroduce the idea of creating a climate action plan for Pullman. We think the time is right. You likely remember that the purpose of the nonpartisan Palouse Citizens Climate Lobby is to create broad political will for effective, economically stimulating, and fair climate solutions. We do this in a variety of ways, some of which include community events. The picture you see on the screen are members at the Pullman Lentil Festival. We publish in local and regional newspapers and broadcast via radio. Recently, we were presented at the Government Affairs Committee at the Pullman Chamber of Commerce, and we're planning a joint agricultural economy forum for the fall. In February, we hosted an agriculture, soil health, and climate policy forum to get input from agricultural producers to legislators, and we had around 80 attendees. And we also gained endorsements from businesses, media, and individuals for climate action. And Pullman itself endorsed a resolution for Congress calling to curb carbon emissions in 2018. One of the reasons we wanted to talk with you this evening is to tell you about a survey that we're putting together, which we'd like your help on. The purpose of the survey is threefold. First, we want to understand general level of awareness and knowledge about climate change in the Pullman community. Second, we want to see if residents are concerned about the local and global impacts of climate change. Oh, thank you. And third, we want to gauge willingness to support local action. We've received support from WSU's Social and Economic Sciences Research Center in developing the survey, as well as other CCL members who have previous professional experience designing and conducting surveys. And I'd like to quickly give you a taste of the types of questions we intend to ask. However, we encourage you to read the entire survey. It was sent to you before this meeting. And we would like your feedback on some of the questions, which I'll get to in just a moment. So for our first objective, understanding awareness and knowledge about climate change, we ask respondents to say how knowledgeable they feel they are about the general effects of climate change, as well as how knowledgeable they think the average resident of Pullman is about climate change and its future effects. We also want to know how much they think climate change will affect Pullman. For our second objective, to gauge concern about the local and global impacts of climate change, we ask respondents how concerned they are about the potential negative effects of global climate change, as well as local impacts. And we give them a list of possible impacts in the Palouse and inland Northwest from recent research conducted at our local and regional universities. For our third objective, to gauge willingness to support local action, we ask how important it is to respondents that the city government take actions such as demonstrate leadership in addressing climate change, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and prepare for predictable climate change impacts on our local environment. We also want to test residents' willingness to support specific actions or policy proposals, and this is where we could use your input. We have put in some example climate-related policy proposals. However, these are made up and the numbers are unreal. It would be more meaningful if we could insert actual proposals that you would like to test to see how far residents are willing to go to support local actions. We intend to execute this survey this fall, 2021, and we think we may do a combination of an online and in-person survey. Administrator Urban and Councilmember Weller suggested we might be able to post it on the City of Pullman website. And our goal is to reach a representative sample of Pullmanites so that we can draw significant insights about the population. And after we have the results, we intend to share them with you. We also ask residents if they want to participate in a workshop hosted by CCL to learn more about climate change and also give input to the city. If you have a moment to take a look at the survey and give us some feedback, particularly on actions or proposals that we could include, that would be most appreciated. And you can feel free to contact me at the email that you see up there with any feedback you have. I'm now going to turn it over to Judy Muth, who's going to talk about the Climate Action Plan.
Thank you. Thanks, Kynan. Good evening, Mayor Johnson and councilors. We thank you again for the opportunity to present to you. We are happy to be Pullmanites. Our city's livability and development and sustainability are directly tied to our clean air, clean water, and the reliable climate that we've had for such a long time. Right now, though, research is showing us that the climate is changing. It's driven by greenhouse gas emissions, and it's coming faster than we thought. The research keeps saying, well, we thought it was going to be 20 years out, now it's going to be 10, now it's going to be 5. And in our local area, some of the impacts that we're going to be seeing and are seeing are higher temperatures across the year and higher temperatures specifically above 95 degrees, and we may hit that this week. Then it's also a matter of changing precipitation patterns. We're going to be seeing more extreme weather and extreme unpredictability, so that things such as Arctic cold fronts will become more common. The kinds of early heat spikes that we've had will become more common. Rainfall that actually ends up in a flash flood in town will become more common. So those sorts of things, including poorer air quality and drought, are happening more and more. And I just wanted to show you this map that I came across a few days ago that really surprised me. This is the Pacific Northwest precipitation this spring. And, you know, we're all aware that the West is in a drought, but we're kind of the epicenter. We are in the record driest year we've ever had since records began to be kept in the late 1890s. And this is one of those impacts that you say, yes, this is climate change, this is environmental, but all of those always translate into human impacts and municipal impacts and economic impacts. So for instance, I know some farmers who are being told by their local insurers not to harvest their crops because it's a done deal already. And that threatens the farming community, which is one of our economic bases here. So the things that look like they're not really affecting us locally are, and it's across the board. So we're excited that Pullman has taken actions and has done significant work already in this area. And we're asking now, you know, where are we going with the climate action that Pullman wants to do next? And we think a climate action plan would be something that would serve the city well, because it ends up being a tool and a process for making strategic decisions to bring down emissions, and while doing it in a cost-effective way and aligning it with other city goals. A climate action plan is actually a roadmap that helps us do a number of things. One of them is decreasing emissions across all sectors. It helps us stimulate the innovation and investment and research and a collaboration of those things in town. It has the potential to really save the city money as well as residents. And it brings citizens into a collaboration with the city where they're eager, they're interested in working on this. And so we have free labor and interest and ideas to help us along in this path. And it helps us prepare for climate impacts that are already here and that will be worsening, as well as getting a head start on the future, because there's no reason that you can't change a problem into an opportunity. And there are those involved here too. There are steps that a lot of cities follow to get to a climate action plan. And the first one here, you already did. The council already passed a goal of developing a climate action plan in 2018 that has not been realized. And so we're asking that you bring that forward and put it back in place for now. We are already working on citizen input with the survey, and we will continue that throughout this process. And then a climate action committee is the structure that the city can create to actually do the heavy lifting here. It will do the work to actually put the plan in place and carry it through. It would be made primarily of volunteers, and then it would be have a city council member, and it would be coordinated with staff. It's highlighted here because it's the step that I think Pullman is at. Ready to do at this point. We've already working on 1 and 2, and so number 3 is pretty much where we are. The city would carry out a greenhouse gas inventory, and that would let us know where emissions are, where they're coming from, and how much they are. And then the committee would set goals and benchmarks according to that to say, how are we going to bring these down? Where do we want to be in 5 years or 10 or 25 with these emissions? And working with staff, the committee would set up the strategies and actions to get us to those benchmarks and goals. And then, of course, we'd be measuring progress as we went along. And if we aren't making progress the way we want, we will be able to amend the plan. Every climate action plan for every city is different from the next one because cities are unique, and so are their plans. But there are tools that are available, lots of resources. Toolkits that have been put together by municipalities and by research organizations. And there are other organizations. ICLEI is one of the outstanding ones that offers expertise to cities. It offers trainings and technical assistance, tools like how do you count your emissions, all of those sorts of things, and Pullman can join that. For Pullman, the joining fee for 4 years is about $1,900. So it wouldn't cost much to really let us buy into those resources. Grants are available, and Pullman has a stellar record of pulling grants in, so they're there. There are lots of cities in our area, too, that we could tap into if we want information. Right now, I think Bellingham has a climate action plan, Eugene has one, Spokane has one, Boise just signed theirs into place this last week. There's local expertise. We have a deep bed of experts in our community in so many areas, from engineering to water conservation to building and construction to decision making, all sorts of areas where people are ready to step in and help the city do this work. So that's a lot of information in a fast nutshell, and we'd be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments? Nathan?
Both of you, thank you so much for your presentation. I know I've had the great opportunity to sit in on a couple of your meetings. I think this is not only, this would have been timely about 10 years ago, and I know you both have been, your whole group have been working on this for far longer than that. And I just want to mention, this is something that back in 2013, after I had returned from NASA, both Derek Skog and I, City Council Member Skog and I, tried to champion a climate action committee, which was at that time rejected, and it was in the goal setting. It is important, in my opinion, to continue to push this forward. This is why this has been #1 in my goal setting for just about every single year. In addition, having expertise from outside of the city is so extremely important. Our departments have expertise in their areas, but the scientists, the intellectual capital that we have in our community and in our region is underutilized, I feel, currently, especially in this fight. So that's what I would like to say, and I say we move forward.
Any other comments? Brandon?
Yeah, I will concur with Councilmember Weller and say that kind of, and I appreciate you saying the time is right. We're past time actually to at least reach out and find out what residents want. And I know a lot of folks get worried and oh no, Agenda 21 and it's going to be thrust upon us. But let's find out what residents want and have a committee that can discuss reasonable solutions to the things that we're dealing with. And with Nathan, I would say let's talk about this at council retreat, because when we talk about this committee, this is one of the ones that we brought up 2 years ago. We even talked about a potential name for this. And so I would suggest let's put this on with our retreat prioritization. If we're going to talk about modernizing or updating our boards or commissions, let's do that.
Okay. Eileen?
Yes, thank you. The survey I thought the survey looked particularly promising. Great. PBAC did a survey that has some overlap maybe with that, so it might be interesting to get together with the folks there and compare data. Once you get the data in, they cast a very wide net, and so that might be an interesting comparison to make. But you're definitely asking the right questions. I thought that was very, very, very good.
Ann?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to let you know, I want to thank you for being here, and I do want to let you know that since I've been on council, your presentations and your input have really mattered, and that is why a lot of the things that have happened is because of your education to us and the resources that you provide us. So I appreciate that, and you can tell that we definitely want to continue and grow in this area. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. With that, thank you very much for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks again for having us.
All right. Now, our next item on the agenda tonight in terms of presentations is the Tourism Promotion Area Defined Established Revenue Operations. This is coming back to the council after request, and Mike Urban will be giving this presentation as soon as he gets plugged in.
Hey, there we go. Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The Tourism Promotion Area is tonight's presentation. It's commonly referred to as a TPA around the state and through all sorts of different localities, so I'm going to be using that as an acronym for the rest of this presentation. So tonight's presentation is a little more technical than some of my previous ones, so I've tried to make it as interesting as humanly possible. But let's get into the meat of it. We'll talk about what is it, what can it do, what type of dollars we can expect, how to get it set up, and hopefully by the end of this we'll have a real good feel about how a tourism promotion area can get started here and be effective. And as usual, now that I can see everybody, I'll stop at the end of each slide and look for questions. This will be exciting. This has been a while. So, okay, so most important thing is to start out with what is tourism promotion, and this is very narrowly defined but very broadly interpreted across this through different people that have already instituted a TPA. But tourism promotion is very, very specific. It means activities, expenditures designed to increase tourism and convention business, including but not limited to advertising, publicizing, or otherwise distributing information for the purpose of attracting and welcoming tourists and operating tourism destination marketing organizations. So any money that's collected for this has to go exactly towards this, no squinting sideways. It's very, very specific. Little different than LTAC. LTAC has a lot more broadness to it, where this one is very, very narrow, tailored. Okay, questions on this? Okay. All right, so what is a tourism promotion area? I'm going to start with the second bullet on this one. This was something that wasn't really available to us as a community up until last June, because it was looking at counties with over 40,000 population. Yeah, we were there, but the numbers kept sliding around a little bit, and Now we're solidly over it, but the state did open this up to all other counties, and that made us a little more eligible, I guess, for lack of a better term, instead of waiting for a census to be taken. So the area, the legislative body for the city or county can form a TPA according to the RCW, and we're going to go through a whole bunch of that here in a second. So jurisdiction-wise, it could include the entire part of the city, or it can include parts of the city. And parts can also be broken down into other zones, and we'll get to that on another slide. But you know, as far as what the city can do, it cannot extend outside of our city limits. And conversely, if the county were to look at one of these, it can't come into the city limits, but we could partner up and, you know, overlap on this. So there's the city part, which is only city. There's the county part, which is only county, unless we come to some sort of agreement to have a actual area. Okay. Eileen?
Yeah, we touched on this in terms of LTAC, but I'm wondering how that applies here as well. We have a collection area which is clearly defined. What about a spending area? Can we only spend it within the collection area, or can we spend it more broadly?
It can be spent more broadly as long as it's for bringing tourism to the border inside.
Okay.
So, yeah, it could be spent in, you know, magazine advertising in Boca Raton or wherever. As long as the impotence behind it is that we are bringing people to Pullman. Okay. Okay. So, legislative authority. The city council has the sole discretion to approve this charge for revenue. And it is a charge, is not a tax. We'll touch on that a little bit later too, because it's not based on a percentage, it's a flat fee. So the money is controlled by the legislative authority. They can cede that, ask other commissions for recommendations like the LTAC. But at the end of the day, the authority lies with the city council on how that money is going to be spent. Okay, establishment. Here's where it gets, we get into the weeds a little bit, and if and fors. So the way to get this started is it's going to take a petition presented to the city council by 60% or more of the hotels that will be collecting this fee. So it's more than a majority, it's 60%, but the proposed, it needs to start there, and in a few slides I can show you what 60% means in our city. But as soon as the hoteliers come to us and say, we would like to institute a tourism promotion area, we have 60%. And as part of their petition, they need to have these 4 items. A description of the boundaries of the proposed area, the proposed use and projects to which the revenue for the charge shall be put, and the total estimated costs, the estimated rate for the charge with the proposed breakdown by class of lodging business, if such classification is to be used. So there's an opportunity to stratify classes, you know, bigger hotels, certain areas of town, we can put them in zones. So we can fine tune this if, especially for bigger cities. And then the signatures of the persons who operate lodging businesses in the proposed area who would pay 60% or more of the proposed charges. So the first thing before to establish is we need this petition from that 60%, and it outlines everything in here. Okay. Once that is received, there needs to be a public hearing. So the council would need to hold a public hearing, properly post notice 10 days prior, and mail to each of the lodging businesses within the proposed tourism promotion area. So that's part of it too. So everybody can come out and they can be heard. So all protests must be heard by the legislative authority. So every group has their time and they get to come, and we can't limit their time. We must hear from all of them. Here's the kicker. Even though it takes 60% to get this petition to City Council, if protests are made by a majority, not, just a simple majority of the lodging businesses, then the body must terminate the formation proceedings. So we have seen across the state where somebody has received their 60%, they received the petition because the other lodging businesses wanted their day in the sun to explain why, and we've seen it wither on the vine in a couple places. I was involved in one of them in my previous life. Okay, so after that's done, the TPA must be formed by ordinance of this legislative body, and the ordinance must include these 4 items: the time and place of the public hearing, description of the boundaries of the TPA, the initial and any additional rates of charge, breakdown of classifications if we're going to do that, and then the descriptions of the use in which revenues shall be put, and they cannot vary from the initial petition. So the initial petition needs to stay consistent all the way along, otherwise the system has been abrupted and we start over. Okay. So the revenue. So we can, the legislative body can impose a $2 per room per night, up to $2 as this fee. It's not a tax, it's a fee, and I've seen it in other jurisdictions. When I check in, it's clearly labeled right there, and I'm sure that the hotels like to use that for when they run their reports and send the money into the state of Washington. So it's, if it's done right, and I haven't seen it done wrong in other places, it's very clearly defined on your bill. The council can establish up to 6 different lodging classifications or zones for different rates for each, and classifications can be based on location, number of rooms, revenue. So if, lower rated, higher, there's different ways to, split the dollar on this one. And here's an important part that needs to be inserted, is that lodging businesses with less than 40 rooms are exempt. They can't be assessed. They're not part of this. It's 40 rooms or more. And when I get into another couple slides, you'll see which ones are 40 or less and 40 or more. The last piece is temporary medical housing is also exempt for this charge. So think of the hospital. It's people are staying overnight, but there's no, that's exempted by RCW. Okay. So additional revenue, this is one of the things that popped up new, and this is set to sunset in 2027. Can add an additional $3 per night to an existing TPA. So we don't have an existing one. We need to start with establishing it at the $2 max level or lower before we even get into this. But it's worth kind of mentioning here. To impose the additional charge, again, it's kind of like starting over. It's at 60%, the proposed uses, the estimate for the rates, proposed breakdown by class. And what this does too, it also triggers some additional reporting through a new RCW 35-101-057, where we would have to do a lot of analysis and turn that over to the state every January 1st as well. So that's what comes along with this additional $3 to discuss. But everything you're going to see the rest of the way out, I'm focusing on just the maximum $2 charge to just get this started. So this would be an addition, and if it were to go forward right now, it's currently set to sunset in July of 27. All right, so what does that mean to the city of Pullman? Here are our current establishments alphabetically, not by room number, with 40 or more rooms. These would be considered qualifying establishments. So it adds up to, I added it 5 times to make sure that number was correct. It's correct, 666. So right now, our non-qualifying establishments are listed there, 35, 31. All our Airbnbs and VRBOs would not be subject to this. So of that 666, what's 60%? The magic number, 399.6, 400. So the owners and operators or operators of at least 400 of these rooms would need to come to us with the petition and say we would like to do this. If, let's see if that's on another one. Yeah, it's worth mentioning here. If that does happen, this all does go through, just because the 400 plus rooms came in, doesn't mean the other folks are exempt because they were against it. It gets instituted on all facilities within the boundary, 40 or more, and that's why we have the public hearing. That's why everybody gets to have their time to talk to you as to why or why not. Al?
Okay, so the 60% is not of the establishments, it's 60% of the room number.
60%.
You're sure of that, right?
Yep. 60% of the proposed charges, so you would assume that the bigger the hotel, the smaller, it has
Okay.
its weight,
I
because
just want to make sure it wasn't 60% of the establishments versus 60% of the room totals.
The petition has to include the proposed charges. So 60%, here's what the statute says, pay 60% or more of the proposed charges. So you need to calculate it together.
So I guess I have the same thought. Are we talking about, so say the 2 Marriotts and the Holiday Inn, that's 400, right? Over 400. Those 3 entities came to us, because that would be over 400 rooms.
you'd be 15 rooms short.
Okay, so we'll add Cougar Land.
Mhm.
Well, I guess my point is, can just certain entities, as long as they add up to the 400 or more rooms, so not all of these businesses have to come forward to ask, to request it?
Just 60%, a minimum of 60% have to be involved in the petition.
Of all of the, I guess we're asking the same question, of all of these businesses, not, because, you could come up with 400 rooms without having all of them,
Right.
but that wouldn't be 60% is what you're saying of the group.
I'm saying if you grab the 2 Marriott properties, and let's just assume they're going to vote as a block, if they're under the same ownership, and that's just a huge assumption, that's 255. So
Right.
with the Marriott, you would need another 145 total rooms to get to 400.
Right,
But if the Marriott did not want to participate, for instance,
right.
there's still 411 rooms out there.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
And that's just the qualifying ones. So the non-qualifying don't figure into this because they're not subject to it. So that would be the Travel Inn, the State Inn, and the Airbnbs.
Thank you.
Okay. Okie dokie. So the revenue page. A lot of conjecture here because the hotels are starting to come back online. So occupancy rate certainly determines the revenues, but assuming all things are equal, so some hotels may be busier than others, and how do we split that through? We go with the percentage of rooms that would collect on this. And, during the COVID-19 pandemic, getting occupancy rates were, it doesn't fit. We're going to be back to full football season, as the mayor announced earlier. Things are turning the corner. Now we're starting to look at it, more of an apples and apples item. And, getting that key performance indicator of what are your occupancy rates, that's something that's very closely guarded by a lot of the hotels, because that's their metrics for profitability, and we don't they rightfully don't share it with us. We can ask them and we can get some general ideas, and fortunately for us, we have a university here in town that has a really strong program where it comes to hospitality. And when we reached out to them, you can see there's a range. I think it was 47% is what Haley's research found out. So about 47 to 78% is the range to have, you know, successful occupancy. And as you can see, we kind of line that out very simply: 100, 75, 50, 25. You know, it varies on the time of year. It varies on what's going on in that town. But the idea is we're using some of this money to help promote our town, certainly in times where occupancy is a little bit lower. So it's marketing tourism in Pullman. So if you just take the occupancy rate, you know, 100% occupancy, every room's full every day, versus 50%, half the rooms are full half the time. Or half the rooms are full half the time would actually be 25%. 50% is half the rooms are full all the time. If you did all the rooms times $2 per night, this is what you're looking at for your potential income at just these 4 jumping off levels. So as you can see, there are some significant dollars out here that we could use for promoting tourism in the community over and above the lodging tax. Okay. All right, collection and distribution works an awful lot like lodging tax. So the tourism promotion charges are collected by the hotels and then remitted to the Department of Revenue. And once a month we get some money and it gets distributed to us, and off we go expending it for tourism promotion. Need to get a contract with the Department of Revenue 75 days ahead of collecting this, and working with the Department of Revenue is really actually one of the easier state agencies to work with, so my concern there is very minimal, if at all. So the trick is to continue to use these dollars for tourism, and then this TPA charge is not a tax on the sale of lodging. It is an assessment. It's a fee on the per night use per room, up to $2. And where do I live? There. Okay, so the authority can be established. The authority can also be removed. And removal is very similar to what it would take to stop the process. It's just a majority of the lodging businesses coming back to this body and saying that we'd like to remove this. The same process starts over the hearing, and if that's the way it looks like it's going to be, the timing of when to remove it is determined by this body as well. It's not to exceed 12 months, but need to make sure that we're able to pay the expenditures that have already been committed in case this happens. Can't be held liable according to RCW for those financial obligations, but paying those financial obligations, because some of them may be local, is something this body may want to consider if that time ever occurs. It's done by ordinance after 15 days notice of a public hearing on the topic. So as easily as it could start, it could also end. So that is not as exciting as a financial presentation, I will admit, but that is what your tourism promotion area is. You can establish it. There are set fees. This body has the ability to approve the expenditures for those items, and it's solely to bring tourism into the community and get people to stay here, and that's why the hoteliers are so important to this process.
Al Sorensen.
Mike, can some of the money be used for hiring people and wages for implementing our tourism stuff?
It was a little vague on the $2 original portion, but it was very specific on the $3 additional that money could be used. I believe that it can, as what's defined as tourism and promoting, so offsetting the cost of putting this on. I would want to get a verification from the state that that's an absolute, but I'm leaning towards the yes.
You said yes?
I
Did you
believe the
think so?
answer is yes
Okay.
at the $2 level. I know the answer is yes at the additional $3 level.
Okay, I'd love to know that. Thank you.
Brendan?
Mike, thank you. I know that with my colleagues, I know you realize I've been harping on this for a number of years now. I feel like we've left money on the table, and the reason that I know that all these hotels I've stayed at all around the state do this is because it is really well labeled. It either says tourism promotion area or it says TPA. And in my discussions with the hotel folks, they see it as just part of the process. I mean, they're already sending LTAC type money to Department of Revenue, so this would go on there. I can hypothesize some various scenarios where somebody might not want to do that, but the way they see it is promotion, and it brings people to the area, which in turn helps them again. And unless there are certain situations, this really is not a fee on our own residents. I mean, people are coming in from out of town, and I don't think they're driving down to Lewiston to save $2. So we have that opportunity to get anywhere on that spectrum of revenue that Mike showed. And for me, I feel like it is a narrowly defined thing we can use it for, but we get to define it, which I think is key. So it may be slightly different than LTAC, but because we can control what that goes for, I like where Al's head is at in terms of having maybe even somebody administer that. I think it would be foolish to not at least pursue it.
As it was explained to me in a past life, in a similar situation when this first came up, you're charging people from coming out of town to bring more people from out of town to spend money downtown and at our local restaurants. And because it's become so widely accepted across the state, it's kind of an afterthought nowadays.
Nathan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So one is a hypothetical, the other one is what other places have experienced. So hypothetical first. Hilton comes in, opens like, I don't know, 100 and whatever rooms. Does that then switch things around? Do we need to?
Point of order, he can't be heard.
If the TPA has not been established and we add another 150 rooms, then I recompute the math and tell you what 60% looks like. Because it's 60% of the total just went up, so the 60% will go up a little bit too.
Okay, but if it's already established,
Then it's established.
okay. The other question is? All right, okay, I'm still getting used to this. Okay, like I said, no calm experience. The other question would be, in other cities, have there been examples where hotels will say, well, this is an added fee, and so we're putting another fee on top of that fee? I'm just thinking about if they see it as an opportunity.
Boy, I'm trying to think of some of my hotel bills and see if I saw a fee on top of a fee. Most of the time I do see just the $2, but I don't know if the hotel has built in some additional overhead there. I think they would build it into the rate, but maybe other people do business differently.
Okay, and I just wanted to also recognize, I know Brandon, you have been harping on this, and I just want to say thank you for continuing it, so, yeah.
Okay. Pat?
Just a quick comment. We only became eligible for this a year ago. So we haven't
Well,
left
I would argue
much
that.
money on the table.
I would argue that.
Well, didn't you just say that it came in just last year that we became eligible to participate?
Yeah, they changed a bunch of the state law to allow smaller counties to be able to do this, and it was very nip-tuck with our numbers. So could we have been eligible last year based on our deal in the previous? Are we definitely eligible now with the change in RCW? Absolutely.
So, I mean, my point is, this only became an opportunity for us in this last
Right,
year.
right, and I'm saying I would still go back and argue that because there was some structural things depending on if we were doing it joint with the county or if we were doing it just the city within a county. I know that in my previous conversations with our city administrator, I mean, when he left, he even sent something to me saying, hey, look, now we're getting $3 extra, and, you know, was encouraging us to continue to push forward on that. I thought we were pretty clear that it was not a numbers issue at that point. So maybe I'm wrong, but if I go back in time, I think I can find where it was more of an issue of getting the support from the hotel folks to petition and look at what does that mean to petition. Is it a form or something else?
Well, and I mean, that may still be an issue, but
Sure.
Any other comments? Yes, okay, Eileen.
Yeah, speaking of the petition, the initial petition under establishment, you have item number 2 here. It says, the proposed uses and projects to which the proposed revenue shall be put and the total estimated cost. How specific does that initial petition need to be? I would like to make this as accessible as possible. So does the initial petition have to have a specific project in mind, or how much elbow room is there in that?
Well, the petitioners would be bringing this forward, so if they determine there's a specific project that they want to see funded, I certainly think they're going to identify that. But if they want to make it more broad towards building like a convention center, you know, that's very specific. But if they want to use it for something as broad as, you know, public art, you know, on a yearly basis, use a percentage for that, I think that can be a little more broad. So definitely partnering with the petitioners during the process and making sure that they're bringing something that can be handled by the legislative authority here is first and foremost, and then in return, once the money starts coming in, we fulfill our mission of what the petition was brought forward on. So it's a partnership all the way around.
So we would be available for some guidance and some back and forth before this actually hit the table.
I would hope the petitioners would come to us and say, how can we make this work? But they could very simply get together at 60% and say, we want this, this, and this, and we're bringing it to you.
All right.
Yeah, but I would love the partnership opportunity, and that's win-win for everybody.
Great, thank you.
And there was a time that the LTAC money was set aside a little bit for a convention center many, many years ago. And we even had an athletic director asking for that money to be used for a press box at one time that the city could possibly even use for a little bit. It was a stretch. They were looking for any kind of money they could get. Any other questions on this? If not, we'll just move on to the consent agenda. These items are considered routine in nature. The council's had a chance to look these over ahead of time. Do I hear a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, Laura McAloon.
Thank you, Mayor. Your consent agenda consists of a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 8, 2021, and approve them as submitted. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 103450 through 103523, totaling $544,719.24. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 103432 through 103449, electronic transfers 1718, 721, and 727 through 732, and payroll direct deposits numbered 69207 through 69518, totaling $1,273,534.44. A motion to authorize a settlement and agreement with Clint Cole for property in Lot A of Pullman Grand Avenue Railroad Short Plat. A motion to authorize a lodging tax grant application up to $25,000 to Palouse Summer Series 2021 for a 2-month-long series of baseball tournaments held over the course of weekends during June and July. And a motion to accept contract number 19-09, City Hall and Parks and Recreation Center relocation as complete.
Does the council have any item out for discussion? Okay. Item number 4 for Al. Anything else? 5 for Brandon. Okay, the consent agenda consists of items 1 through 4. Do I hear a motion to approve? Excuse me, you had 4. 1 through 3, let's go for that one. And item number 6. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? With that, Al, for number 4.
Okay, I wanted to get a little clarification and just some information out to the general public on this, maybe. And Laura, maybe you could help me out a little bit here and kind of give a background here on what happened with this property, that we owned it, we sold it, and what's happening.
So the property was owned by the city. It was sold to Mr. Cole in, I think I had that in my report, 2018. It was early 2018. It is former railroad property, meaning both Burlington Northern Railroad and Union Pacific Railroad, and then WashDOT as the successor owner of, I think it was the Palouse and River City, or Cooley City Railroad, all owned portions of that area. The city was approached by Mr. Cole. He purchased it from the city with the intent of converting it to a maker's space. There's also a long-term lease on the property, if you recall, that he took over that lease. Because it was former railroad property, that always comes with title issues. And so when it was sold to the city, or to Mr. Cole, it was sold without any title insurance, because no title insurance company would insure it. And he has now gone ahead and initiated a quiet title action in Whitman County in order to obtain full and clear title to the land. He has successfully obtained the stipulated agreement from both BNSF and Union Pacific and WashDOT, with WashDOT simply retaining an access easement to some property that they own. And so all he's waiting for is to obtain the consent of the city to a stipulation by the city that the city has no interest or ownership in the land at this time.
How much did we sell it to him for?
I don't have that figure in front of me. It was for essentially the assessed value of the property.
I think it was around 50,000. Does that sound right to people sitting out here?
Yeah, it was less than.
And his intent was to put what in there?
Makerspace.
Which means what?
He was going to use the building to have where he could have people coming down. He would have 3D cutting machines. He would have photocopy. He would have all like an office space for people to work, including high school students, college students, where they could actually set up an area where they could create a product, so they wouldn't have to buy an office space or something like that. That was the original
It's
intent.
essentially incubator space for small manufacturers and entrepreneurial manufacturing facilities.
And do we know if that's happening or not happening?
So that building is subject to a lease. I don't know what's happened with the lease. I do know that he had inquired into trying to convert the building itself, and I believe the expense of converting it is significant, much more so than anticipated.
Okay, and just a few more questions here. I believe I see a for sale sign down there for it. So is the reason that he is doing this action in order to get free and clear title of the place so that he can sell it?
That is my understanding from his legal counsel, that part of the reason for initiating the quiet title action is to get marketable title, because you can't sell property that's
Not there.
It's very hard to sell commercial property on the market without title insurance.
Sure, and would you by chance know what the amount is that he has it for sale for?
I don't know the specific amount. I do know it's over $1 million.
What was that?
It's over $1 million.
Okay. And then my other question here well, first off, it's not on South Grand, it's on North Grand. But it says here that the city will continue to have the right to buy the property back, to repurchase the property should Mr. Cole sell the property in the future. And what kind of agreement is that? Is that to match the offer that comes in, or do we buy it back for what we sold it for?
It's a right of first refusal to match an offer that comes in.
Okay. Is it possible when we do these types of sales to selling city property where the right of first refusal would be to repurchase the property at the selling price plus any additions or fix-ups that they did to it to pay for that?
Well, it's always possible to negotiate the terms of a purchase and sale agreement. The purchase and sale agreement that the city, by which the city sold the property to Mr. Cole was a purchase and sale agreement that came to the city council and was approved. So you can always ask, it's a real estate transaction, right? You can always negotiate what the terms of that real estate transaction are.
Okay.
I don't know whether a buyer would think that was commercially reasonable or not.
My point here is that we were brought an idea to the city council for a project to occur. The project did not occur, is not going to occur apparently. And now the person that bought it from us, the entity that bought it from us, is set to possibly make quite a pretty penny on the profits off of this property, and I'm not very happy about that. And I'm just bringing this out so that the general public knows what's going on. That's why I brought this to talk about, because we are supposed to be good stewards of our property and take care of the city. And I have a big problem with this. And my next question is, what if we don't agree to this?
It would go to court. There'd be a trial.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve number 4?
Can I make a quick
Yes.
comment?
Okay.
I just wanted to support what Al was saying, Councilmember Sorensen. I know there were several different groups that were excited about a maker space or something along those lines. And yeah, it doesn't look good. Yeah, so thank you, Al, for asking those questions. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
He also told us that Clint did, and that he was trying to get that to work. And as you well know, he was one of the ones who created Digilant in town, and very successful. But he was trying to make that one work, and he said it didn't pencil in with the building or whatever. He also tried to, I think at one time I saw a design for office space. He was going to split it up in different, like 2 stories, and create office space to see if he could make it work that way too. So at least he made those kind of efforts. Eileen?
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Ann.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when we were presented with this by Mr. Cole, he did, I believe that he had good intentions to do what he said he was going to do. I do agree that he ran into some issues, and you can't foresee that when you buy a property and you want to do something with it. So I don't think it's quite fair to assume that he just didn't do something and now he's making a lot of money, because he's actually a very astute businessman whom I've known for a long time, so on a business level. So I just want to support what Mayor said, that at the time that this was in front of us, he really did want to do that, and what happened after that is not for really us to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Now, Eileen.
Yes, thank you, Al. I've had plenty of caffeine today, so I always fall back on old sayings. Well, Mr. Cole's success is what it is, and it must be acknowledged, but one swallow does not make a summer, and 2 wrongs don't make a right either. This has made me very uncomfortable right from the get-go, and I'm not at all happy with this. I don't know that there's any way to fix this very, very readily. Like one of my fellow council members said, it looks really bad.
So if this was not approved and it went to court, then the city would also have court fees, correct? And legal fees, big time, to represent us. I just want to make sure everybody knows the consequences.
It would be litigation over whether title should be quieted in the name of Mr. Cole. The city sold it to him under a purchase and sale agreement, released all title and interest. I can't see any reason why the court would not find that he should have clear and marketable title to the land. Usually it's railroad land. Usually it's the railroad ownership and what the nature was of the railroad's acquisition of the land that triggers a question of fact about whether he should have clear title to it. This city was the fourth owner. So I honestly don't know how the city would argue that title should not be quieted in Mr. Cole's name.
Al?
Yeah, I know where we're at. I agree with you. My entire point with this is for this council and the city of Pullman to pay attention to sale of property or sale of anything and make sure that what we're doing is what we should be doing and we're doing it the correct way. I don't see that there's any way to stop this, and I do know that I believe that the judge would just rule in favor there and it'd be a done deal. Again, my point was just to bring this all up. As Nathan said, you know, it looks bad. If he's a great businessman, he should have done his due diligence knowing what he could and couldn't do in the building before he went to buy it. Just my own personal opinions. And I'll make the motion to approve this.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. That, Brandon, you have number 5.
Just wanted to thank the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee on this. We've talked about the Palouse Summer Series many times, and in the last 2 or 3 weeks, going out to lunch or dinner 2 or 3 times, I have seen so many players and their families in our local restaurants. So even though the games are spread out and you have them in Colfax and other places, they play all over the place, and they're staying in our hotels and they're eating in our restaurants. This is a wild success, and this is not new. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now, but I think the Palouse Summer Series is, I think it's a great example of the possibility of what the LTAC can do.
Al?
Yeah, Brandon, absolutely, and it's not just the restaurants, it's every place in town. They're everywhere. They're in the retail stores. You've seen them. I mean, I've seen them. This is, as we've said, one of the biggest outside gatherings other than the WSU football weekends that this place gets, and it's during our downtime. So, yeah, I'm super happy that we have gotten this to them.
And it's been proven year after year after year. So let's just make sure that we know that this has been a winner. So do I hear a motion to approve number 5?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. With that, we now move to the regular agenda. First up is a resolution accepting the bid of the Moscow Pullman Daily News as the legal publication. Laura McAloon.
Thank you, Mayor. So the city published the previous contract, 2-year contract for legal publishing is set to expire July 31 of 21. On April 1st, the city clerk provided notice to the Lewiston Morning Tribune, the Whitman County Gazette, Moscow Pullman Daily News, and the Spokesman Review that the city was seeking bids for legal publication services. Moscow Pullman Daily News and the Whitman County Gazette were the only newspapers that submitted bids. The clerk did determine that the lowest bid received was the bid from Moscow Pullman Daily News, and that also had the highest newspaper circulation numbers in, I think your agenda item says Whitman County, but I think technically that's Pullman, in the city of Pullman. Staff does recommend accepting the bid from Moscow Pullman Daily News to provide legal publishing for the city in the years 2022 through 2023. So you have before you a resolution number R-35-21, a resolution accepting the bid of the Moscow Pullman Daily News for legal publication.
Any questions on this or comments? If not, do I hear a motion on it?
Second.
Moved and second. Laura, would you read the resolution, please?
Resolution number R-35-21, a resolution accepting the bid of the Moscow Pullman Daily News for legal publication and authorizing the designation of the Moscow Pullman Daily News as the official newspaper of the city of Pullman.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 2 on the agenda is a motion to approve agreements with the U.S. Department of Treasury and the State Financial Management for the American Rescue Plan. Mike Urban.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Back before you again is the American Rescue Plan. This item was sent to us the day before the last council meeting, so I wasn't able to get it on the last agenda for approval, so I brought it back on the first agenda available. But what we're asking for tonight is council authorization to allow the mayor to enter in agreements with the United States Department of Treasury, who is going to be giving the American Rescue Plan dollars out and receiving the reports back, and then the Washington State Office of Financial Management, who will be handling the dollar distribution locally, since we're not a city over 500,000 people for various and other various things where we're not an entitlement city. So the federal government did authorize the American Rescue Plan back on March 3rd, and they brought this these documents to us on June 7th. So the American Rescue Plan is going to cover any eligible expenses connected to responding to the COVID-19 pandemic from March 3rd of this year all the way through December 31st of 2024, as long as we meet certain requirements for the years 23 and 24. Basically, if we have projects that are already out and being performed, we're allowed to finish those items after 2022. So there's very specific things on that, and as we talk about American Rescue Plan dollars in the future, I'll bring those specifics to council, so there's a full understanding of that. As soon as we can get these agreements into the Department of the Treasury and Office of Financial Management, they're going to turn around and issue 2 checks to the city of Pullman, one in 2021 and the second tranche in 2022. And you're going to see a number that we haven't talked about yet, because beforehand the number that was presented to us and I've been relaying to you was $7.5 million. Well, when the state sat down and figured out everything else, that changed to $9,632,280. So we stand to see half of that here a couple weeks after we get this sent in, and then another half sometime next year. That hasn't been relayed very specific, and we can start lining up projects to talk to City Council about. We do have a CIP plan that got posted today that a lot of those projects would also qualify on this, and figure out a really good spending plan here, taking into account council's goals and priorities, which you guys will be working on as well this Saturday. So all we're asking for tonight is authorization for the mayor to enter into the agreements presented.
Questions, comments? Al?
This is fantastic. We got a lot of things we can do, right?
Oh yes, the wheels are turning very, very much so. Department heads are already starting to put together thoughts that we can bring to council and see if their response to the pandemic, and make sure that we can do some really great things here in the city.
And it's pretty broad usage, right? I mean, for the most part.
Extremely broad, and to the point where I put a note in here that the sooner we can get this in, the sooner I can contact OFM and start getting some better guidance. That'll be helpful. I don't believe I'm going to get the same guidance from OFM than I did from Department of Commerce under the CARES Act, because the CARES Act was, we'd like to do this expenditure now. We've done the expenditure, now can we have our money? Where this is the other way around. It's here's your money, start reporting to the feds. So I think it's going to continue to be very broad interpretation. So we'll be reaching out to them, and we'll also be reaching out to the state auditor, because we certainly don't want to get, caught crossed up on that during an audit. So again, very broad. That frequently asked questions document that I share, I think Eileen remembers, because we talked about the CARES Act a lot. Started at 6 pages and ended at like 56 or 62. Yeah, this one, same thing. It started at 8 pages. It's already up to 16. I haven't checked this week yet.
Very good, thank you.
I can remember specifically mentioning to both Senators Cantwell and Murray how we would like to have it like the transportation, because transportation was rather broad, and the other ones were all very specific, and I think they listened. So.
They certainly did. There is some revenue replacement in here, but there's an equation that we need to go through, and we also need some guidance on that because it's not really clear. I don't think it should happen this way, and I want to get somebody to agree with me that the CARES dollars that we received last year should not be considered revenue. So does that get to be backed out? And if so, we're also the receiving source for the airport. And Tony did very well last year in receiving grant dollars. So did that put us in a place where maybe we don't have lost revenue over the previous year? And these are some of the questions we need to get answered.
Any other questions? And do I hear a motion on this?
I move to move forward.
Second.
Move and second for a motion to approve agreements with the United States Department of Treasury and the Washington State Office of Financial Management for the American Rescue Plan Act recovery funding in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Council.
I could not think of anyone who would be opposed to receiving money, but one never knows. All right, economic development, marketing, and plan proposals. With that, Jennifer Hackman.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. On May 25th, City Council directed staff to release an RFP for Economic Development Marketing Assessment and Planning Services with a budget of $10,000. The scope of work in the RFP included creation of a marketing plan and recommended components, some of which could be accomplished immediately and all of which would bring measurable results within 18 months and within a $50,000 budget. The RFP was released and promoted on Tuesday, June 1st. Proposals were due at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 15th. Along with this, an advisory team was created by Council, consisting of Council members Sorensen and Weller. And that group met with staff yesterday and did review these submissions using a score sheet identified in the RFP, looking at firm and principal qualifications, qualifications of the project team, recent similar project experience, project understanding and approach, and cost. A total of 6 proposals were received, and you have those proposals in your packets. If council wishes to select a firm, staff is prepared to move forward with negotiating a contract with that firm and establishing a schedule for the firm to begin a work on the scope of services. The advisory group, I want to mention, is also available and like to continue providing guidance as we move toward that. Thank you.
Do you want to hear some comments from the subcommittee? Again, Al and Nathan, you had a chance to watch it.
Okay, yeah, we were unable to get together before this came out, so you didn't get a recommendation from us in your packet. So we did meet yesterday, and we spent a full 2 hours and then a little more going through each one of these and really evaluating them. And we kind of came to a consensus that what we'd like to do, I hope you all have looked at these a little bit and maybe yourselves done some scoring or put some things in order, and we kind of like to hear from you guys what you think, and then we'll let you know how our stuff came out at the end, if that's okay. Brandon.
Do you want that now, or do you want us to send you something?
No, now. We'd love to go through this and make the decision on this tonight so we can move forward.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so-
Brandon goes first, and then we'll go to others.
And first, I would thank you and Nathan both for the time that you spent on this. And I know there were a couple other people who would have gladly served on this committee because it's, geez, we've talked about this so many times. So this is really good. I both liked the AD, and Raycraft. I will just stipulate that I know both of the Adams in Raycraft, so, but in our discussions, as we've talked about it, it's nice to have somebody who would understand the pulse of the community, but not necessarily be in city government or one of us or whatever. So they understand what makes us tick, but they're not too much of an insider. Both of them were, I actually thought all of these were really strong, but both of those scored probably the highest for me, and liked the more holistic way of looking at what is tourism and how do we bring people in from outside.
Okay, Eileen?
With measurable results.
Having had the opportunity to work with both Adam and Adam on a couple of different things, yeah, I can't tell you how much I've learned from each of those gentlemen in just what little we worked together on, just some little projects. I just learned a ton of stuff from them. I mean, they're very, very insightful, very different people, so they each bring a very different perspective. I've sort of been, staying out of this because I did get to know Adam, and I'm sort of strayed out of this. But now that I look at their material here, I'm so happy that they're in this process and are willing to roll the dice with us. I think they would be an excellent choice.
Okay, Pat? Yes.
Me? I liked the Addie proposal, and I also liked the Golden Shovel proposal. The Golden Shovel proposal stood out for me because they had an exclusive focus of economic development and participated with other clients in a number of different levels of economic development. They had 240 clients, cities such as Tulsa, Columbus, Georgia, and Mason County being a client. And I was thinking that Mason County at least provides some sort of a local barometer for us. Shelton is the county seat of Mason County, so that just kind of gave me a little different feel. And I'd be happy with either Golden Shovel or the Addie agency.
I liked the Addie proposal. I felt like it was very professional, but at the same time very approachable. Like you could picture those people being here and talking to them, and I liked their ideas. Of course, I really do like the local firm. I think there's just a lot to be said for that, and they really understand our issues and what we are striving for. And I also agree, I did like the Golden Shovel proposal as well, for many of the same reasons that Pat just said. So I would like any of those.
And now we'll hear from the subcommittee. Nathan?
No, I'm letting Nate go.
Okay. And again, work your microphone real close, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate all the council members, the discussion regarding the different companies when we were going through these. And Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Addie was a little lower for Al and I can't remember, was it a little?
Well, we did take off points from 80 Advantage because their quote came in a little higher. They were saying they would do a virtual, but if we wanted them here in person, they gave a price for that too. So their price for in-person was $12,000. Their price for a virtual visit was $10,000. So we did take points off for that.
So that was a challenge with 80. And Recraft, I also both know Adam and Adam. In fact, the Pullman marketing, I was an advisor when he was going through the school. And so I knew him when he was a young man, still kind of going through high school. What we found, well, I can only speak for myself. I'll cede the floor to Al and Jennifer after. One of the challenges with going local is sometimes you have blinders on to what are some of the greatest weaknesses that might be in the community, and also some of the strengths. I love what both of them have done. The videos, everything in the community. I think it's a challenge because when we were vocalizing, when we were organizing our thoughts, the council before, we wanted, from what I recall, somebody who was outside, who could come from outside and give us additional information and bring some expertise that may be from other industries. So that being said, Golden Shovel was at the top of all three of our lists, and correct me if I'm wrong here, either one. And so was, I know for Al and I, make sure that I have this right, Victory. The thing is, there's going to be a few phases when we go into this, and I believe Jennifer can discuss that a little bit more, but I'll give my time up here to Al to explain his views.
Okay, yeah, as Nathan said, it kind of came down to that. The 80 thing looked good, but they were a higher cost. They were only going to do a virtual visit, and I'll be honest, when I looked at their proposal, they didn't seem that interested. That's how I read their application. I didn't have, I, along with Nathan, also thought that we had mentioned that we kind of wanted maybe some broader lookout. But I had a couple of questions that I used my own on this, and one of them was, do they have any Pacific Northwest experience? And number two, have they worked with cities specifically? I think there is some uniqueness to marketing and that kind of thing with cities, so I wanted to see some of that happening. And therefore, at the end of the day, on my sheets, I had Victory and Golden Shovel just about equal, and up there. And I didn't have Addy or Recraft in the top three. And so the other thing is, I think we got into this a little bit. This is just the very first step, and it's the one to help us figure out what we need to do. And so there's always opportunity after this first selection of a company to pick someone else or whatever. And Jennifer can probably talk to this a little bit. Some of these are not going to move to the next step. They only do this. But we're trying to find, as best we can, who we think the best group might be to help us move forward. Now I'll throw it to Jen and let her talk more.
Yeah, I think, so when I was looking at these, I was looking for a good combination of economic development background and some marketing background, kind of combining the two. So I think the three of us did agree that Golden Shovel, as well as economic development strategies, were two that were in our top three. And then we disagreed on the third, which is fine. 80 Advantage came to close to the top of my list. I'm very familiar with that firm. They only do strategy. They would not implement anything. I think Golden Shovel is looking at doing this portion as an investment. They are excellent at what they do. I'm very familiar with their work, and they do have strong client success stories. They're a bit focused online and web, so that's just something to keep in mind, versus there are a lot of different kinds of economic development strategies, but I think that we all do want some online presence, and that's kind of really where we're thinking. So I think, 2 out of 3 we all agreed in terms of our feedback. We all really liked economic development strategies. We all really liked Golden Shovel. 80 came in, frankly, 4th for me, only because I didn't know if the council would be okay with adding more dollars so that they could come visit and be here in person. But yeah, Al's right. This is the first step, and we separated them because we wanted to give ourselves the option of finding a firm that would give us the list of things to do and then move on to that second phase and not expect that all of it come all together. Where you're trying to find an agency that can both do the deep dive, talk to the community members, bring our stakeholders together, and give us their, almost like a consulting to, what their feeling is about our targets and how to approach those targets. We did feel that those two companies, and I would agree that 80 Advantage very much can do that as well. It's just that they're a little higher on the price.
Any further comments? Pat, I see that you're going to the mic.
Thank you, Glenn. I just want to be clear on what the purpose of this is. And in my mind, we are looking to market Pullman to potential businesses that would locate here. Now, tourism may be a side benefit of this, but this is not specifically targeted to driving tourism, correct? I mean, the purpose of this was to market Pullman to other businesses to come and locate here in Pullman, correct?
I think it was broader than that.
Okay.
Including people moving here, too. I mean,
Yeah,
we
it
have a whole
was,
broad
it was,
thing
it
here.
was, it was the marketing of Pullman, period, and whatever that might be, to bring small business, big business, people moving here, and that kind of thing. It's about marketing the entire city of Pullman, not one sector.
Okay.
Definitely inclusive of potentially bringing businesses.
And there's tourism, economic development, and there's kind of a triangle here, and they all get a little bit connected, but they are a little bit separate. So I think we're going to have an overlap no matter what, which is fine.
Okay, Brandon first, and then we'll go to Nathan.
Yeah, and I think, as I look through, certainly Golden Shovel, they mention and they show just a couple snippets of a few websites they've been involved in. I know maybe this is the pitfall that I've gone down, but and understanding that this is just a response for an RFP, but some of them, it was text heavy. It was like reading an academic journal. And when we've talked about marketing Pullman, we've talked a lot about visual communications and does it look nice? And for me, I still see if you don't present or put your best foot forward, including the visual presentation of your response to an RFP, how do we know that it's going to look good on the tail end, right? So some of them were very visually pleasing, and so maybe that's my fault. Maybe I got sucked into something that looked good, but I know some of them looked really good, and maybe there wasn't as much substance as, say, Golden Shovel, but that's to me is something that I think we just need to keep in mind is they can say that they'll be able to do something. How do we know, right? So maybe you visited all the websites that they talked about, and maybe it does meet what we need.
Okay, Nathan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate both what Councilmember Wright and Chapman mentioned. As far as the text-heavy, yeah, if you look at Victory, this was one that was very eye-catching, I know, for Al and I, because they had done their homework into Pullman. They had a little slogan, Pullman Perfect or Perfect Pullman, Pullman Home. There was some really, really interesting ideas there. But one of the challenges in this, and Jennifer really was able to help us understand this, is that the strategy is what's needed at the beginning of the phase. And also what she mentioned, to Councilmember Wright's point, was that the different companies looked at the strategy in different ways. There were young professionals, there were businesses, there were different sectors that they were looking at. And so it does encompass a wide variety. So I do appreciate what Councilmember Wright, what you said regarding that, because it is such a large component that we're looking at. We're looking at businesses, young professionals, families, the whole thing. So I hope that answers both of yours.
Yeah, and just you and Al being able to defend this to us tells me that, I'm pretty confident in your guys' assessment then.
Yeah, revolvers, high noon tomorrow. I'm just joking.
So I've heard from at least 4 council members that have Golden Shovel on their top of their list, and again from the subcommittee. So do you want to make a recommendation then, or do you want any more discussion on this? I heard from you tonight that you would actually like to make a recommendation so we can get moving on this.
Yeah, I think that was the whole point of this, was to move as fast as we could, so.
Okay. We have heard that there's no one on new business to call in. Yes?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were just moving past. If the mayor and the council would indulge me for a moment on new business, I just had one really quick item.
Well, I was just going to say that people that tried to call in, we'd have no one that's calling in.
Correct.
So now we'll take new business
Okay.
here. Okay.
Just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce our new Public Works Director. He started on Monday. He came back today, and so we're really excited that he's hung out. So for those of you that weren't on the interview committee, this gentleman here with my haircut is Sean Coates, and he's here with us now in Pullman. So just wanted to welcome him and let the council see his face.
I don't know if he rode his bike here tonight, but he's quite a bicyclist too. He rides trails around here. When he came here to check us out, he was riding trails all over the place. So it's great to have you here. Okay. And again, if you don't remember, he got his bachelor's degree from University of Idaho in civil engineering and his master's degree in civil engineering from Washington State University. And that attraction for the Palouse is what we used to get Sean here. So it's just been great. Did you have another statement?
Yeah, I just had, welcome, first of all. I have one item, and I just wanted to, so I had the opportunity to do the fire ops training a few weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, and in that process, as I was going through that, one of the little stations was an EMT station. And yes, I had the thought as I thought about the budget and the amount that we spend on emergency response. And I'm going down this rabbit hole, and how much do we spend per life that we save? And I think some of these thoughts become fairly natural, and you don't. You may even have the thought, that's a lot, what's the value of a life, until it hits home. And so, without mentioning any names or anything, a few weeks ago, you may have heard that a 17-year-old rolled his car, really bad accident north of town. He's lucky to be alive. And again, I'm not going to tell you his name, but you would know his parents. And he's a kid going into his senior year of high school. He should be dead, but a young gal stumbled, she didn't stumble, she drove upon his car, and she rendered first aid. And then our firefighters, we had 2 that responded, EMT. So Christian Shad and Paul Hebink responded, and had they been any later, had they gotten him to the hospital any later, had he been able to, air flighted to Spokane any later, he would not have made it. He's still in a long recovery, but it hit me that when I heard this, that when it hits this close to home, it does matter, and the value of a life. What is that? I don't know, but I can tell you it certainly feels like it was worth every penny that we spend. And to me, Paul and Christian were heroes that night. Late night, and they did everything that they could to keep him alive, to get him to the hospital. And so I felt like I should point that out, that it was a great experience. Certainly, fire ops. I asked Chris Volk, I said, what's the chance, Chris, that I will die in a fire today? And he said, 0%. This is very controlled. So I got to feel like a real firefighter without any danger, which was nice. But they just do a bang-up job, and I really appreciate that. And I know you have a couple parents and friends and family of this young man who are so glad that our firefighters, our EMTs, are well-trained and calm when they need to be, and just do one heck of a job. That's it.
Okay, and I can tell you another story that, just like that at the airport, when somebody was actually getting a little bit late to the plane, and our airport firefighters did that. He had a heart attack, and then our paramedics showed up, and they had revived him about 2 or 3 times. That person is alive today because of the training of the airport firefighters and our own fire. So we can hear a lot of those kind of examples, and I know Gary has used that when we've had some of our police officers have responded quickly. And with either Narcan or something else, we have people that are alive today. We're very grateful for our emergency responders. With that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Saturday, goal-setting retreat.